Okay, well, welcome, and we'll talk about the negative oil price. It's been a crazy market recently. I mean, price have been going down a lot, price been going up a lot. Recently, been going down a lot again, right? As you can see on this chart here, that price for oil has dropped to free and then to negative for the May delivery, right? So we'll explain about what is a negative oil price and what does it mean um, for people like trading in the market, but also for everyday kind of consumers, right? Um, First, I got a kind of disclaimer that um, any kind of commodity trading is typically a very high risk kind of endeavor in the sense that um, price will fluctuate a lot, right? So if you do want to trade, say commodities and even stocks and those kind of stuff, make sure you're only trading with money you can afford to lose, right? Like you don't want to be putting in more money than what you can afford to lose, right? It does fluctuate both up and down, right? Um, for example, myself, been making a little bit of money previously in doing trading and in doing investments. Yeah, and then this kind of wave of kind of crash come along. Yeah, definitely lost thousands of dollars in this crash, but that's all right. I mean, it's kind of it's with this sort of investment, you got to look over the long-term horizon. But let's come back to today's topic. What does a lower kind of oil price or a free or negative oil price mean for you, right? So firstly, you would start seeing like cheaper fuel prices at the pump, right? Like in Australia, I think it's around the petrol price around 80 cents or 90, maybe 90 cents a liter now. And in New Zealand, we're looking at $1.60, right? And with the recent kind of decline in oil prices, I won't be surprised at all if oil price drop by another, like say 10 or 20% at the petrol station pump, right? So that kind of means for everyday consumers, your petrol your price kind of will get cheaper. You can drive longer for the same cost, right? So it's definitely a great news for people in Western country where we're like a net importer of oil, right? What is not good for, which we're going to talk about some of the consequences of the some nations where they export oil and those is there will be like a lot of major consequences. A lot of company might go bankrupt and so on. So let's talk about some of the headlines for today, right? So so negative oil prices. What's been the reaction around the globe, right? So in the report by the New York Times, um, we seen like the oil price and plunged to negative territories. In fact, like the most commonly used benchmark, which is the West Texas Intermediate TWI benchmark oil, which is the most traded kind of benchmark for oil prices for May delivery, has been trading as low as $40 per barrel. So basically, yesterday, um, some traders were willing to pay you $40 to take away a barrel of oil off his hand or her hand come in May, basically. So that's as low as the crash I've gone. So in fact, there'll be a lot of kind of news and twitters about, yeah, maybe it's not worth kind of extracting oil now. Like it's kind of just it's crazy. Like where you have a cost of producing a barrel of oil, right? So typically the cost of producing a barrel of oil, I think for Saudi Arabia is around $20 uh, for US and other Russian countries. I think they're around 30 or $50 thereabouts. Anything below that amount, they're losing money, right? They can't even maintain their cost of production. let alone paying other people to take petrol off them, right? So the reason this been plummeting, the price been plummeting so quickly, or even become negative, is because uh, with the current kind of crisis, the requirements for oil have gone down by a lot, right? The consumption have went down by more than 50%, right? I think the figures around like 70 or 80 or even 90% reduction in in the amount of requirement we need for oil. And you probably have heard the news that the storage capacity been running low as well. Couple that with a lot of countries, that even like Saudi Arabia and Russia earlier, a few days ago, they were even increasing their production. So basically, what this means is supply has exceeded demand, and if you're like an oil producer, your market have just disappeared in the last couple of weeks, right? Like if you look at this chart here, um, like just a few weeks ago, like people were paying like somewhere between $50 to $70 a barrel, right? Just within like the time of a few, uh, like a couple months, a few weeks, right? The price of petrol has gone down so much, right? Um, so that's kind of problematic. And to make things even worse is the oil that's produced are not uniform in kind of in quality, right? So sometimes you get very rich oil. Some places you get oil that's like slightly, say, lower quality, or maybe like they require like a longer distance transportation. So in Canada, there's a kind of province called Alberta where they produce a huge amount of oil as well, um, known as Alberta oil, also known as Western Select. So typically, those get sold about $10 below the West Texas Intermediate crude oil, just because um, the quality is a little bit lower, and they have to have a longer distance transportation, right, before you can reach refineries. So if the West Texas Intermediate are trading at say free or negative prices, it will make a lot tougher for places where they are kind of producing oil and they can only sell their oil at a much lower price, right? Um, so and also let's have a look at abroad, like big oil producing nations like Saudi Arabia and Russia. They are kind of our traditional oil producers, right? They typically have the lowest oil cost in production. So Saudi Arabia, I think, have a cost about $20, and Russia has somewhere around 40. Um, but but that's when they start making a profit. So anything below that, oil is becoming a liability for their country, basically, right? Um, so so if at the current prices, right, like if you look at the current kind of um, oil price today, I think it's around $10 or $12. They're making a huge loss per barrel, right, for both Saudi Arabia and Russia, right? Nobody can produce oil cheaper than Saudi Arabia right now, right? And also, just start making a profit for a lot of those nations is not enough. Like for countries like Saudi Arabia, where they will budget somewhere around say $70 or $80 per barrel, so they can balance the budget, right? Because they have kind of run um, their budget using say oil price for so long. Um, yeah, if it's this low for this long, their balance sheet is going to be deteriorating and gets even worse, right? Unrelated news. Today, I also seen that Virgin Australia unfortunately went to administratorship today, or yesterday, yeah, after they've been denied a bailout. So hopefully they could survive this. Otherwise, yeah, the cost of flights both around Australia and New Zealand will be higher. So over the long term, the current kind of market expectation will be the oil will hover around the $30 mark, right? But there's still a long way to go to meet um, the average production cost, right? Um, so kind of the question to you guys is this, right? Like, I remember like not so long ago, we used to be in a kind of a nation where the ones that can produce is kind of the king, right? The one who can produce the oil, the ones who can produce the goods, right? People want, right? Like, seems to be the one that kind of leads the economy globally, right? But now the question is, are we have seen a shift on this, right? Are we seeing like a shift towards a more kind of consumer-driven economy now, are we, right? Like it seems like that way, right? It's a nation that actually who need to consume oils benefit the most out of this crisis, rather than the nation that produce those kind of raw materials or oil, right? So far we have started seeing things like negative interest rates for like reserve banks. I know in some EU countries they even have like a negative mortgage rate that they will pay you to borrow money. So if you have time, I probably will make a video on that as well. So now we're kind of seeing a flash negative like oil price as well. What else do you want to see price to become negative, right? Like, um, I mean, it's a crazy world we live in now, and anything might happen, right? So with that, that's all me for today. We'll talk to you guys next time.